Hello and welcome back to Instagram for Bosses. I'm your host Andrea, and it's my mission to simplify Instagram marketing so you can consistently attract ready to invest clients without posting every day or living on your phone. And today I want to talk about something that sounds small on the surface but carries way more emotional weight than we like to admit. A reel that only gets 300 views. Now, if I'm being completely honest, when I see a reel sitting at 300 views, my first thought isn't panic. It's usually that reels just don't get the kind of reach they used to, which if you've been on social media long enough, you'll know is part of the natural life cycle of platforms. Reach changes, formats evolve, and algorithms mature. Now, that doesn't mean that reels are broken, but even knowing that, there can still be this tiny sting and subtle disappointment. Because we've been conditioned to think that bigger numbers equal better performance. And this is where I want to zoom out with you today, because 300 views might actually be enough. Maybe not for your ego, but for something more important, your revenue. Now let's put this into perspective. Imagine you were invited to speak on stage about your service. You walk out, you look up, and there's 300 people sitting in the audience. Would you still feel like barely anyone is watching you? Or would you be like, wow, this is so many people. This is nerve-wracking, and it would feel quite significant. 300 people in a room is not small, it's not invisible, and it's certainly not irrelevant. It's a decent-sized audience listening to what you have to say. And yet on Instagram, we've been conditioned to look at that same number and think, that's nothing. And that's the distortion. Now let's bring it back to business. If 300 people saw your reel and just 10% of them were curious enough to click through to your profile, that's 30 profile visits. Now, out of those 30, say 5 send you a DM, and then out of those 5, 1 converts into a paid booking. If that booking is worth $3,000, was that reel still a waste of time? Or did it just earn you $3,000 in revenue? And that's the part no one screenshots. Now, let's take it one step further again. Say you're a high-end clinic wanting to generate an extra $15,000 to $20,000 a month. If your average treatment plan is around $3,000, you don't need 100 new clients. You only need around 5 to 7 bookings a month. That's it. And when you zoom out like that, the pressure to go viral starts to look a whole lot less important. Because if one reel with 300 views can realistically convert 1 booking, then you don't need 100,000 views. You need consistent visibility in front of the right people over time. And this is where high-ticket services are different to low-cost impulse purchases. If someone is booking a $120 facial, they might decide quickly. Whereas if someone is committing to a $3,000 treatment plan, they're watching and they're researching. They're saving posts or they're sharing them with a friend saying, what do you think? They're observing quietly, which means that not having loud engagement in the form of likes and comments doesn't necessarily mean that there's no one genuinely interested. It just means that your buyer journey is longer, and in high trust industries, that is completely normal. So here's what that typically looks like. Someone will DM you saying, I've been following you for a while, rather than saying, I just saw 1 viral reel and booked immediately. They've been watching and consuming your content quietly, forming an impression over weeks and sometimes months. And when they finally reach out, it can feel sudden to you, but to them, this is something that's been building over time. They've been watching you for a while and they've been considering working with you. And that's the part people forget when they obsess over view count. Content compounds. And that simply means that every post you create isn't a one-off event, it's a touch point. One piece in the overall picture that a potential client is forming about your brand. And when someone finally books and says, I've been thinking about this for a while, there's this little moment of validation because you realize that those quiet viewers were there all along. They just weren't announcing themselves via comments or likes. So when a reel sits at around 300 views and you feel that flicker of disappointment, the better question isn't why didn't this go viral? It's did the right people see it? Because in high ticket businesses, you don't need virality, you need depth. Now, let's talk about the spiral that can happen after you see that number. 300 views and the thought creeps in, why even bother? This is so much effort for such little return. Maybe Instagram just doesn't work for my type of business. Well, I want to gently challenge that because when you zoom out, what you're really saying is, if I can't see instant visible momentum, I'm assuming there's no impact. But the thing is, high ticket services don't operate on instant momentum. They operate on accumulated trust. So if you're a clinic offering a $3,000 treatment plan, or a bridal stylist who's booking out wedding seasons, or a venue securing multi-$1,000 events, those decisions are very rarely made after a single touch point. They're usually made after a series of impressions. And if you panic every time one post doesn't explode, you're going to consistently shift your strategy before it has time to actually work. You'll try a new format, a new trend, new branding, and ironically, it's this inconsistency that actually slows down results. Because in order to gain your audience's trust, you need repetition. And repetition requires some restraint. So instead of asking, why didn't this go viral? Ask yourself, how many buyers do I actually need? If you only need 5 new bookings this month to hit your revenue target and one reel can realistically convert 1 booking over time, then 300 views isn't a failure. It's visibility and it's an opportunity. We've got to stop measuring high-ticket businesses like they're product-based brands chasing scale. You're not trying to sell 1,000 lip glosses. You're trying to secure a handful of high-trust buyers, people who are thoughtful and well-researched. So the next time your reel gets 300 views and you immediately start to question whether Instagram is worth the effort, I want you to pause and I want you to run your numbers instead. Because if 1 booking is worth $3,000 and you only need 5 bookings this month, then you don't need virality, you need consistency in front of the right people for long enough for them to trust you. And that is a very different strategy. So if you take just one thing from this episode, let it be this. Virality is not necessary for Instagram to be a valuable inquiry channel for your business. You only need a small number of the right people to actually reach your revenue goals. And if you're unsure whether your Instagram is actually positioned to convert those viewers into real inquiries, that's exactly why I created my free Instagram assessment. Think of it as a diagnostic. It'll show you where your gaps are, what's building trust, and what might be quietly slowing down those conversions. It takes less than 3 minutes and it gives you something far more useful than a follower count ever will. If on the other hand, you're at that stage where you're just thinking, I don't want to keep guessing, I just want this handled for me and for socials to be off my shoulders, then you're welcome to book a strategy call with me and we can explore what it would look like to work together. Because when you stop measuring your business like an influencer and start measuring it like a CEO, Instagram feels a whole lot less emotional and a whole lot more logical. I'll leave the links to both my free assessment and strategy call in the show notes. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this episode resonated, take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. And don't forget to tag me at Andrea Marie Creative because I love seeing who's listening and chatting with you over on Instagram. And if you haven't already, follow the show so you don't miss the next episode. If you really want to make my day, you can leave a rating and review because it helps the show to grow and impact more business owners. I hope you have an amazing week and I'll catch you in the next one.